Mm, Hi. So,
Hi,
firstly, okay, firstly, thank you so much for joining, Vijendra sir.
it's my
And
pleasure.
and you're like one of those people whom I think has the profound grasp on art and politics. Also, one of the most crucial things about your tweets is like they are so simplified and people understand them so well. And so, one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of yours.
Thank you for saying that, and I'm glad I my writing resonates with you.
Yeah. So we will start with so what college you went to and what you pursued.
I went to Ravenshaw College in Cuttack, Odisha, and I did English literature May graduation.
Yeah.
After that, I got into MA, but I did not finish MA because halfway through MA, I got through to Asian College of Journalism, which is in Chennai.
Chennai. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went there, and after that, yeah, that's all my education. उसके बाद
And
पढ़ाई
so
नहीं की.
and even like recently in your tweets you talk a lot about how people don't consider art as far as science, and a lot of people have been messaging you saying that even engineers face a lot of problems. So what do you have to
Yeah.
say about that?
So I think a lot of people don't really like, I don't think people who say that engineers have also suffered. I don't think they're bad people. It never feels nice to be put in a spot, right? Like
Yeah.
agar koi engineer hai and we tell them that listen, you have no idea how much I have suffered. They feel like they're being attacked,
Yeah.
but that is not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is that this side of things, ki art students face an academic bias their entire lives, is true, and it does not get talked about as often as it should be. And whenever I at least talk about it, people say that you're being snobbish towards engineers and doctors and science students, etc. What they don't realize is the systemic snobbishness that art students have to face their entire lives, their entire academic lives. And even engineers, even people who are arts people today,
Yeah.
who used to be engineers, even they kind of fail to see it because in their eyes, they the path to arts has come through science. They went into science. After they were done with science, they came into arts, which is kind of like, what about the people who never were interested in science? What about the people who didn't want to be software programmers or doctors or engineers? What about the people who wanted to draw and paint and tell stories from their childhood? There is no career path for them. They have to build it themselves. So when I point this out, people sometimes don't really understand it fully.
And it was also reflected in your username previously, angry art student, to which and it changed to words are weapons. So like how did that transition happen?
Angry Art Students was in the bio. The username was the name used. I used to use my real name, which is Vijendra Mohanty. But
Okay.
Words Are Weapons was something that I like. I used to post selfies on Instagram. But
Okay.
then one day I decided that my Twitter threads, I can just repurpose them and post them on Instagram. And
Hmm.
it started to get a lot of traction. So I kept doing it. And my Instagram account went from being a photos account to a text account. So I changed the name to Words Are Weapons because that's I use that on Twitter also. Words are weapons,
Yeah.
and in Hindi I say Shabd Shastra hain. So
Huh.
because I truly believe that words, when people say weapons, people think violence, aggression, etc.
Violence, yeah.
But
Ammunition.
words can also be, but words can also be the weapon that stops the other weapon. Because not just my words, but the words of someone who's standing on a stage and inciting violence, those words are also weapons. And in order to counter weapons, you have to use weapons.
Yeah, true. Agree. So you're also into writing. So how did you develop interest in it?
I always had it. I don't know how it started because I have been writing stories since I was a kid. So I don't think there's a story there. One fine day, I read stories, I watched animation series,
Yeah.
and I was writing superhero stories since I was in primary school.
And yeah, your
In a
even your
diary,
even your comic book series. It's based on like how Ravan is the protagonist, right? So
yes, yes,
and how people usually forget 99 good things done by a person and they just remember one bad thing. So what do you think
true.
about what do you think about morality? Is it subjective or objective? And how did that thought come in your mind about Ravan being the protagonist?
So Ravan was a very, we didn't really think much about morality when we make the decision to write the comic about Ravan, because that was just, we wanted to do a bad guy point of view story, and we decided to do it on Duryodhan. But then we decided that Ravan was a more well-known bad guy, quote unquote. So
Yeah.
we decided to do it on him. But after we started, the stories had started sort of flowering, because I write stories from Hindu mythology, rewrite them sometimes, retell them sometimes, and I'm never someone who's disrespectful. I try to, I try to take the sentiments of people from all walks of life into consideration before I retell a story. So in Ravana, in the very first issue, we sort of clarified that this is not Valmiki Ramayana, this is not Kamban Ramayana, this is not Tulsidasa's Ramayana, this is our Ramayana. And just because Ravan is the main character here does not mean Ram automatically becomes the villain, because that is not the case. In our story, exactly all the same stuff happens. Ravan dies in the end at the hands of Ram, and he's an avatar of Vishnu. It's just that I didn't want we believe in villains, right? But in real life there are no villains. People have reasons for being what they are.
What they are.
So that is what I wanted to. That is the message I wanted to convey through an epic that everyone knows and loves.
So, but do you believe that we can never really relate to the heroes people generally consider in these sagas and mythology? We always end up relating to the villain the most as we grow up.
Yeah, but I think that's an adolescent thing. I'll tell you my story. DC Comics, right? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is someone you look up to no matter what. But Superman and Batman have their ups and downs. When one is very young, they look at Superman and they're inspired by him, so they want to be Superman. When one is teenagers, when one reaches their teenage years, they decide that yeah, okay, Batman is more real, more human, more dark, etc.
Yeah.
And because teenagers are always angsty, they become huge Batman fans and they start calling Superman a Boy Scout. I find that despite that having happened, I am now at a stage in my life when I am once again finding that Superman is more of a role model than Batman is. Because Batman, once you go through the ideological motivations of these characters, Batman starts to look like a right wing. Batman is a right winger. Technically, Batman is a conservative. Batman is an industrialist who is breaking the law to do what he thinks is right. Superman is kind of a liberal, because Superman is the guy who says that we have a responsibility towards those who are weaker than us, those who don't have defense. Batman does that also, but Batman's way of doing it is different. Batman tries to rule by fear. Superman tries to inspire. So yeah, that was my view on that issue. Sorry, I digressed a little.
That's okay. So do you have any tips for people who are just gonna start out writing or in this writing field, who have blogs and wanna get in? Any tips for them, people who wanna start out writing?
For writers, writers.
Yeah.
What kind of writers? Comic writers, short story writers, novelists, or online writers?
Mostly people have met as short story writers and bloggers. They have, yeah.
Yeah, so create a blog. First tip is that your time should be divided 50-50. 50% goes to writing and the other 50% goes to marketing it. Because that is a field that I think most writers superbly fail at or think that it is not important. एक ब्लॉग है उस पे मैं रेगुलरली लिखता हूँ या लिखती हूँ और उसको मेरे अलावा और मेरे दोस्त के अलावा कोई नहीं पढ़ता है. That will not work because at the end of the day you want to be read, right?
Yeah.
So marketing, promoting, branding, these are all very important things that most writers should pay more attention to. And of course, writing के बारे में एक ही advice है. Don't stop writing. Write consistently. Write all the time. That is how your writing improves.
Yeah. And you're also a storyteller, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So I think that was a storyteller is a more overarching explanation of what I do. Because if I say writer, people think that I must be writing film scripts for some reason. So instead of saying novelist, short story writer, comic book writer, prose writer, Instagram thread writer, I just say storyteller because that covers all of it.
Also, I want to go back to our previous question, which I asked about morality. So what is your opinion on it? Would you think it's subjective? Everyone has their own, because there are no predefined rules or parameters कि अच्छा ये इतना तक सही है, इतना तक गलत है.
Hmm.
So
No,
what
I think morality is objective within human society. But if you look at it from the perspective of someone who's outside of human society, it is subjective. Because our sense of morality emerges from the kind of animals that we are. In the animal kingdom, there are creatures who kill and eat their own young, but we don't, because we are creatures who have become stronger and more, we are survivors because we stuck together. So a crucial aspect of our existence, of our continued survival, is our communal harmony. So when we do things that break that harmony, we kind of destroy society a little bit. When one human being kills another human being, the tribe that they both belong to becomes weaker. So over a long period of time, killing has become immoral. Theft and robbery are immoral. Other crimes are immoral, because everything that goes against the grain of the tribe staying together is defined as immoral. And religion was a layer of storytelling that was affixed on top of it. So yeah, एक आदमी, मतलब आदमी औरत जो भी है एक सोसाइटी के अंदर, उन सब के लिए मोरालिटी का डेफिनेशन यूनिवर्सल है, क्योंकि वी आर द काइंड ऑफ एनिमल हु रिमेन स्ट्रांग बाय बीइंग ट्राइबल. In another society, suppose snakes or llamas or something, the meaning of morality, the meaning of right and wrong may be different.
But so the fact that morality is subject among us is it's mostly because of the experiments which were conducted, like real life experiments which were conducted years ago, and then we concluded that okay, this is wrong, this is right, inherently.
No, because, okay, so we are tribal animals. The question I have to ask you is it possible for human beings to not be tribal?
I don't.
Because the answer right now seems to be no. But if we had gone down that road, perhaps today morality might be different for us. But we didn't. We came down this road, and therefore the inevitable result of that is that our sense of right and wrong is universal. Murder is wrong, theft is wrong, certain things are wrong in every society. So that is what we decided upon it, because once we got to a point where we had to, suppose in someday far in the past, there was a tribe of human beings who had the choice. Yeah, either we all remain independent animals, we are nomadic, we travel, and we live that way, or we stay in one place, we grow crops, we keep animals, and we live with each other. We we do palan of the same festivals, etc. We made this choice, we stayed together, and therefore our morality is what it is today. If we had become a nomadic animal tribe, it might not be immoral to leave old people behind when they can't walk, when they can't move. If we have been nomadic animals, it might even be not immoral to eat other people of the same tribe. Because if you are on the top of the Himalayas and you have no food, then it is perfectly okay, maybe in that society, for an old person to say, it's okay, kill me and eat me.
Yeah.
So because we are what we are, our morality is what it is.
Yeah. You're also into gaming, so let's talk about that. So
yeah, I'm just beginning to get into gaming.
Okay. So like how did you get like interested in it?
I've been not feeling like, since December of last year, I've not been feeling very well mentally. I'm always anxious.
Yeah.
And whenever I am anxious, I pick up a new hobby so that my routine changes. Because what happens is that when you wake up in the morning and you have nothing new to look forward to, the day starts to weigh down upon you. So that's how I started. I picked up gaming, started playing a few games, and because I am a content creator, I try to create content out of everything. So I started a gaming channel on Facebook, on YouTube, etc. And they have had varied levels of success, but I'm really enjoying it. I think I'll continue doing this. I'll keep creating gaming related content. And yeah, that's it. I'm playing mostly mobile games, and I've downloaded a bunch of PC games, but my computer is not really compatible with a lot of modern games. So I'm planning to upgrade it soon, and then I'll see where that goes.
And what do you think about the gaming scene in India?
As I said, I'm kind of new to it. I don't know where, how far it has come since when it started, how far the online gaming community is going to go. So yeah, I don't think I should say much about it because I'm brand new to it, and there are people who know way more than I do.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask if you believe in simulation theory.
If there is evidence for it, I'll believe anything. But since simulation theory is just a theory, no. I know, listen, my point is we don't know everything about the universe,
Yeah.
and that's okay. So
But
we
like,
don't need to, I'm a science fiction writer. I'll happily speculate.
yeah.
But I draw a very firm line between speculation and reality. I always have done that, which is why, despite the fact that I write science fiction, I am not very given to pursuing a theory unless there is evidence for it. And simulation theory is, at the end of the day, just a guess.
Yeah. But do you think even if it were to be true, it would change things for us, the way we think or the way we perceive world?
It might, because part of the reason we fight amongst ourselves is because we think we are the center of the universe, and because we have not had access to life on another planet. Imagine if there was life on another planet out there and we knew about it and we were interacting with it. Do you think human beings will still be fighting each other? I doubt it, because
But
we will have a collective outside enemy to think about.
true. But then, do you think people would more think in a sense that okay, nothing matters now. It's a simulation, or would they actually go like how Jordan Peterson talks about that they will actually find a purpose in life, or they'd be nihilistic?
Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to say how people will react to it, but they will definitely react to it, and it will definitely be, if it is proven without any doubt that this is a simulation, it will change everything. It will change governance. It will change religion. It will change economics. I think on multiple levels. There will even be a sizable chunk of humanity which will continue to remain in denial about it because the status quo as it exists right now
Yeah.
is comfortable for them.
So, so you do agree that people are like very afraid of change, even though if it's good for them.
Yeah. Everyone is. You are, I am, everyone is. The idea is to get over it.
So, since you post a lot about current affairs and politics, especially Indian politics, so when did you start developing interest in it?
2611.
Okay, so that raised your curiosity.
I
Uh,
was in journalism college for a couple of years before that, and I still hadn't grown much of an interest in politics. But 2611 raised my interest in foreign policy. And because, when you are under attack, you become fearful and you become aggressive. That kind of was my first steps towards being right wing, because right wingers tend to be more hawkish when it comes to foreign policy.
hmm.
And uh, after that ended, I have never really lost touch with it, because no, my understanding is still not as great as some of my friends' understanding is. But my understanding of my interest in all of this started in 2611. Before that, I was not very interested.
But you shifted to being a leftist, or
Not
from
really a leftist. Out, like, they say out of the frying pan into the fire. I'm out of the frying pan, but I don't know where I am right now. I'm definitely not in the fire. I call myself still someone who is a centrist. And I can tell you one thing with certainty, which is that I will always be opposed to whoever is in power. I was opposed to Congress when the Congress was in power. I am opposed to the BJP's policy. I question them. I criticize them regularly because they're in power. I think the duty of a citizen is to always be critical of the people who are more powerful than him, and to stand in defense of people who are less powerful than them.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What do you think about people who, because these days I see people have stopped doing free and critical thinking. They just believe whatever the facts, whatever they see basically. They don't apply their brains to understand why it is like that, or if to even have their own opinion, if anything.
Yeah, I
And
think it's not something that has started these days. It's human nature. People always try to. People tend to believe what they already believe in because that is the status quo. Because changing their mind is something. Changing a mind is scary. Changing a mind is scary because your beliefs define your community, right? So if you are a right winger, all your friends are right wingers. The discussions you have in the afternoon with them are right wing discussions. So in a situation like that, when someone is faced with the possibility of thinking, hey, maybe I was not right, maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I should not believe in this politics anymore. The reason a lot of people don't think that, and the reason a lot of people don't break out of that thought, is because it means losing their friends. It means losing their bearing on reality. So it is very scary. I understand that. But of course, there are people who do it. And I think even right now, both on the left and the right, there may be people who may be reconsidering their opinions, but are too scared to come out and say it.
True. And as you mentioned that you identify yourself as a centrist, so there are notions about them that that they're just there to criticize everything. But a person should also be skeptical all about everything in life. So do you think the extremists aren't as skeptical as centrists?
The extremists are not what?
As skeptical about things around them, about government, as a centrist?
So skepticism is a double-edged sword, right? Because you should be skeptical about claims that are being made without any evidence. But there is also a kind of skepticism which goes too far in the other direction, where people are skeptical of everything. Like I know someone who thinks that coronavirus is a conspiracy, that is not really a pandemic, because he's a skeptic. He doubts everything. So, right, so he doubts this also. So you can be a skeptic and it may be a healthy skepticism about things, but you have to eventually reach a conclusion. And if you're an extreme skeptic, you never really make up your mind about anything and you doubt everything, which is, it has its plus side, but the downside is that you are likely to fall for multiple conspiracy theories. Like climate change isn't happening. Those people call themselves climate skeptics. They're actually climate change deniers.
Yeah.
So skepticism, the word itself does not really mean anything unless it is put in a specific context.
Also, do you believe in the world that you are living in? So how important it is to be politically correct?
Again, political correctness is a word that is being thrown around a lot these days. Mostly what I hear from people is that I just say what is on my mind. I'm not politically correct. And what that translates into is that I just want to abuse people without people holding me responsible for that. So political correctness, I don't think is a thing. Be nice to people. It is not rocket science. It's not hard. Talk to people like human beings. Online, when you're like, I get messages on Instagram, right? They start with an abuse. I don't even read the whole message. I delete it because you have no right to expect comprehension from someone who you are not even going to treat like you would treat them in real life. Just because things are online doesn't mean you have to be a dick. So I think, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
So, so since you speak your mind, so obviously you get a lot of hate since you mentioned and the trolls. So how do you deal with it? Because social media is very haywire and it just makes you so anxious. And I think you took a break also from social media recently.
I did.
Yeah.
But that was not because of abusers. That was because of things that are actually happening. Abuse I can handle. I have been on Twitter for 14 years. I have been on Instagram for almost as long. It's only in the last 6 months that a lot of activity has started happening on my profile. I can handle abuse. I'm not that thin-skinned. And my solution is that if you are going to talk to me in a civil way. Otherwise, you have no right to expect a response. That's it. So I block them. I block people. Sorry?
So trolls don't affect you? Trolls or any negative comment, anything?
No, I don't. I won't say they don't affect me, but they don't affect me enough for me to change my lifestyle. People are always going to be disagreeable or abusive or any of those things. It depends on us how we deal them. I find a lot of people try to entertain people who are abusive. I think that's a bad idea. If someone is abusive, throw them out or tell them you're abusive right now. Come back when you're civil and we will talk. But while you're abusive, no conversation will happen with you because that is not the kind of place this is. So we have to keep our profiles, our comment sections clean.
Yeah. So you think people are afraid of discussions rather they get into debates than actually discussing things in a civil manner? Why do you think it is like that?
I think people have forgotten what discussion means, because India is a country where we have a very rich tradition of debate. We have something called Purva Paksh, which Jordan Peterson calls steel manning.
Can you explain
So
it?
Purva Paksh is basically, suppose you and I are having a discussion. You say, you present your case, and before I can respond, I have to restate your case until you are satisfied that I am stating it in a proper manner, which prevents straw manning, which prevents me from attacking a position that is not even your point of view, right?
Yeah.
So I think I did one video on this, which was about debate in India. It was not a very long video, just one small rant.
Okay.
But I think people are, because of the kind of culture that is being encouraged by our prime time TV news discussions, people have become of the opinion that debate means shouting at each other,
Shouting.
fighting each other. Conversation ka culture gaya. So what I try to do when I'm not angry, sometimes I'm angry and I just write, very aggressive stuff. But when I'm not angry, I try to spell things out in detail over the course of one essay to make the point as clear as possible with examples, so that at least I'm communicating something, at least some knowledge is going out, at least some point of view is being expressed, instead of just me saying this is wrong and this is I'm wrong, I'm right and you're wrong. I do that also, but sometimes I try to do it in a more sane way.
Yeah. And the way you clarify things, I think the people really appreciate you for that.
I guess the response I get most often is I could not have said it better myself.
Yeah, true. I couldn't agree more. Uh, so I have this one question. I just noticed it. So do you think the government is losing its power to big corporations, and that our world is getting more controlled by those corporations than the government itself? And I have one more follow-up question to that. Uh, so, so do you think those corporations? So the government is basically like an employee. So they just want the best results. So it doesn't matter to them which government it is. They just need their results. So they and the government which is able to deliver the best result, they'll choose them.
Yeah, that's true. I'll answer your follow-up question first, which is that because a lot of people think that the Congress was into crony capitalism, but the BJP is not, which is false. Because no matter who comes to power, they're always at the, political parties need money to win elections. And corporate interests will always take priority because that's where the money comes from. So one of the things that I find hilarious is people thinking that Congress was corrupt. They are right to think that the Congress was corrupt, by the way, and people thinking that the BJP is different, which is the funny part. It's not. Every political party is going to be working for those who provide them money. If a political party can exist through Patreon donations, then they will answer to those people. But as long as they're answering to a few people who have most of the money, this is not going to change. And which takes me to your first question, which is, I think corporations have been a significant force in deciding which way policy making goes in any country, not just India. In fact, America is the worst affected by this, which is why AOC is such a refreshing voice to hear these days.
But
Have you heard of Alexandria Cortez, right?
Yeah, I have heard it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay, you should look up. You should look her up and read about the policies that she advocates, etc.
But do you think, in a way, our policies are made in such a way that it benefits USA more than it benefits India? Because in the longer run, even the big corporations in India, they are not at just the India level, because that's just to, I think, bring out emotions out of an Indian person, and they are actually playing in the big league. So in a way, our laws and policies are made to favor the US. Do you think that?
Not all policies, but yeah, America has been a quote unquote friend country for a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that are done by way of policy making in India have to keep in mind, friend countries' interests. So yeah, I wouldn't say that every single policy that is made by the government of India is for the betterment of America, but it's by no means absent. Those considerations do exist, and those decisions are made. But I don't think I can go into great detail about it, because a better person to answer those questions would be a foreign policy expert.
Thank you. And my last question to you is, since this my podcast is called Sab Moh Maya Hai, which means everything is an illusion. So in life, have you come across anything, any notion or idea which you believed, and then suddenly you are like, oh no, that this is an illusion? Any Sab Moh
Yeah,
Maya
the
Hai moment in your life?
The BJP. I think the BJP would be it.
Nice answer. Uh, so thank you so much, Vijendra sir, for doing this.
Thank you for doing this.
So I had a really lovely conversation with you, even though I was very nervous.
Nah, that's okay. I'm also very nervous, but it's always like it's never easy to just start a conversation on a podcast. But video helps.
Yeah,
I have given I have previously given interviews to podcasts, and it was audio. And what happens usually in the middle of it somewhere is that, hello, am I still on? Can you still hear me? But video में पता चल जाता है कि आदमी का reaction क्या है सामने वाले का.
true.
So that's video helps really.
And it also तो दोनों का मतलब comfort level भी थोड़ा आ जाता है.
हाँ, exactly.